Good afternoon. A lot of energy in the room, so very thankful that we have Inside PCPS number 2 out there in the audience. So glad that you're here. Welcome to the Polk County School Board's work session on this fine day. We will now call the work session for April 23rd, 2024 to order. I would like to thank everyone for being here, especially if you notice in the back, we've got our staff and they're accessible. Really appreciate your time with us today. So as we have any questions or issues that we can bring forward to you. We're humbled to serve alongside you and the most highly educated workforce in the nation. I would like to start by reading our Who Are We statement. We are the Polk County Leadership and Governance Team. If we were to pick one phrase to define us, it would be student-centered, because when we come together to work, we lean on our diverse backgrounds and experiences to ensure that our decisions, they're focused and really on providing a high-quality education for all students. And the four most important things to our governance team are: 1, operating with integrity; 2, respecting our students, staff, families, and each other; 3, establishing a culture where stakeholders feel valued, they're supported, and have opportunities, lots of opportunities, for personal and professional growth; 4, supporting an approach of continuous improvement to ensure student outcomes. And then collectively, we need to work on behalf of the children that we serve and find avenues of agreement so that when we govern the district, it's in an effective manner. There's no acceptable alternative. We will always collaborate in a respectful manner in order to enhance opportunities for each student and staff member. We will not disparage others. Our students will thrive because we will remain committed to supporting the whole child. We hope to engage and empower our students and stakeholders to create a community of lifelong learners. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Superintendent Hyde to lead us in the rest of our work session today.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Chair, members of the board, members of the committee and staff, it's my pleasure to kick off today's work session with Inside PCPS, second class, otherwise known as? Yeah, we didn't even practice that. How was that? That's pretty good. So I'll turn it over to our Inside PCPS leads.
Good afternoon. My name is Kim Long. I'm the Executive Director of Polk Vision, and we bring Inside Polk County Public Schools to life, together with members of the school district, committed to embracing the community in new and innovative ways, and it's due to the leadership of Mr. Hyde. And actually, this was the brainchild of something that Sarah Beth Wyatt brought to Polk Vision several years ago. While it took us a few years, battling COVID got in the way, but while it took us a few years, I think we've got a really fine product and a fine Class 1 as well as members of Class 2, which are present today. Joining me is Class Chair for Class 2, T. Michael. T. Michael Stavers serves as the City of Winter Haven City Manager, and he also was a member of Class 1. So I'm going to advance these slides. And let you know that this class was assembled with love and care, and they immediately, when asked if they'd like to participate, responded favorably. The rate of decline for this class is so minuscule, and it's always has to do with scheduling. So we do offer an ambitious schedule, 1 day a month over the course of the school year, and we have a really broad impact and sincere gain in knowledge and learning. And there's a great video I'm going to share with you now that is the result of the collaboration and support from the communications office here at Polk County Public Schools.
Inside PCPS gives community and business leaders in Polk County an in-depth look at the triumphs and challenges of a modern public education system. Spanning 10 months, this unique program provides an immersive experience exploring what it takes to manage a $2 billion organization responsible for offering a high-quality education to all students. Inside PCPS class members receive an up-close view of all education levels, from early childhood to high school career academies and everything in between. Class members will learn how they can better partner with Polk County Public Schools to support public education and help students reach their highest potential.
The Inside Polk County Public Schools program is great because it gives you a behind-the-scenes look at everything that's happening in the district. I think it's really exciting to see the participants learn about like the financial aspects of the school and the challenges and the limited decision-making authority that we have at the district level and how much relates back to the state. It's fascinating to see people gain that understanding and just the shock and awe of how challenging that is.
I think we look at the school system as this big, huge organization and all of these different moving parts, but the ability for us as business leaders in the community to rally around a community school or the neighborhood school or the one that's closest to our business is available to us. Like, we can help connect the business community in each individual neighborhood, and I thought that wasn't a possibility before.
This is an opportunity to learn about what goes on in the school system, to learn so that you can share with the community. It's very important to let the community know. Before I was a school teacher, I never stopped to think about it. You need to think about what the needs are, how we can help, and how we can share this information so that we can make our community much better than it is today.
I challenge everyone that's going through this class to really come in with an open mind, because what you're going to learn is going to challenge your perception. I don't care if you already volunteer for the school district. You are going to learn things in this program that are going to challenge what you have always thought. And my hope is that it'll open your eyes to what a great public school system that we have.
Every time I leave this program, each and every month, I talk to my wife about it, I talk to my family, my friends, and I say, man, you don't understand the great things we have inside of Polk County. And understanding what everybody has done behind the principals, assistant principals, staff, and teachers, and how special they are to our students. Because each and every day they come to school, these are the future leaders of Polk County. And we need to make sure we support them in every way possible.
So that's a great recap of what we did over the past 10 months or so. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with members of your staff, with Polk Vision, and with these outstanding men and women of our community in really expanding the understanding and awareness and advocacy for what goes on in Polk County Public Schools. Superintendent Hyde said this was the best class ever. There's only been 2 classes, so whether it's this one or the last one, I'm going to claim rights to it. But to give you some idea of what they've accomplished and where they participated over the past year, we spent a day with your Safe Schools programs, learning about how facilities are planned for and designed and paid for, the information technology, really trying to get a foundation of you've got to have the house in which to provide all these services. Understanding the finance, the community partnership schools, the Hearth and Tassel programs, and the challenges of our school counselors. Very eye-opening. That's a part of the operation that a lot of us don't see every day, but something we need to have a greater awareness of and advocate for. Understanding the legislative issues that the school board faces, not only at the state level, but at the federal level. Our career and technical education and our acceleration and innovation programs. Again, unless you're directly involved with it, it's stuff that people in everyday walk of life may not have as much awareness of. Fine arts, well, you saw that we did a lot of dancing. It seemed like every place we went, if there was music, somebody was dancing, or if there were instruments, they wanted to play them. Public relations, the Polk Education Foundation, your strategic partnerships within the athletic arenas and how that portrays back to your athletic competitions and the programs that you're able to provide. Your early childhood, exceptional student education, school nutrition, and school grade program. To see some of your exceptional student programs. Again, if you don't have family or close friends or acquaintances that are involved in those programs, those are school campuses that you may never step on foot on their campus. I can tell you, and I say the same thing about last year, that's probably one of the most impactful and eye-opening experiences that this group got to participate in. The principal for a day, I don't know that any of them chose to go on and pursue a career of being a principal after spending half a day with them. But again, great opportunity to learn more about a school within their particular district in which they reside or work, and then also learning about our engagement and recruitment and some of the very innovative things that the school board and Superintendent Hyde under your leadership are doing to bring about folks coming in and staying with our organization, recruiting from abroad, creating opportunities for students that maybe want to pursue education to land a lifelong career here in Polk County. And then this morning we had the opportunity to tour transportation services and really get a behind-the-scenes look at what it takes to move 50,000 plus students on your buses. And spend some time with you at lunch to learn a little bit more about what some of your passions are. As I said, we did a lot of dancing. We learned a lot from students, whether it was in the STEM programs or in art programs, to see some of the career academies and what they were building at some of these schools. The talents of these students is amazing, but it is a direct result of the talents that your faculty and your administrators have. The schools that we got to visit were some of the oldest schools in the districts and some of the newest schools in the districts. And regardless of the age of the school, what the teachers and the administration, the staff brought forward was superior in all cases. Schools that we visited, you can see those that would be within your districts. We talked at lunch about some of the things that you're most proud of. A lot of things that you mentioned you were proud of were things that we actually got to see, and we think that equally you should be extremely proud of them. The employees of yours that we had a chance to interact with, you can see here. We've had your liaisons. Jeanette's been with us on most days. I'm trying to think who else. There was a number of folks that were with us throughout that would come and go, but your liaisons were with us each and every day. Great advocates for you, and certainly helped us become better advocates in our daily walks to give back to the schools. And community panelists that we brought along, certainly our folks from Polk Vision. We had folks from Southeastern, Central Florida Healthcare, United Way, Heartland for Children, talking about the whole wraparound full child type services that we need. It's not just about what happens in the classroom, but what happens outside of the classroom. And then, as I mentioned, members of our Polk County Tourism and Sports Marketing Team and the City of Lakeland, City of Winter Haven, talking about how we partner to deliver exceptional athletic opportunities for the incredible athletes within our county that really hone their skills while participating in sports at the public school level. Number of sponsors that were involved, so if you have an opportunity at times to interface with any of these folks, these were people that helped make our experiences rich and joyful. IDX Image Depot, Theater Winter Haven, Pallet One, Citizens Bank and Trust, Central Florida Healthcare, the Public School Development Solutions, and Central Florida Development Council. So again, if you have an opportunity in your dealings to, again, thank them, we certainly extend our appreciation to them. And with that, I think we are at the point to present some, we're going to call them diplomas. There was some question of should they be called certificates, but we think, and if somebody wants to hum either Pomp and Circumstance or the theme from Jeopardy, either one would probably be appropriate. So Kim's going to read these off, and I'm going to hand them out. You need your list.
This is, we'll pause, though, if any of you have any questions for the class before we complete this momentous occasion. I know that you've been peppered with questions today. Do you have any questions for either T. Michael, myself, or class members?
Ms. Miller?
I just have a question. In Leadership Polk, we have surveys to fill out. Does this class, are surveys available about each visit? I would like access to those surveys, Mr. Hyde.
Sure.
I'm just curious to what's working great and what we could do to maybe show them more or different areas. So I'd love for a summary.
Thank you for that question. We do survey following each class, and we will survey following this ceremony this afternoon. We'll roll that information up and share that with you.
One of the things, Board Member Miller, that you had mentioned that we haven't done, and that's the education within the jail system. And that was something you'd mentioned, something you mentioned today, and that's, again, a piece that I'm going to say most of these folks have never experienced or maybe have been aware of it. Certainly I have some very minuscule awareness of it, but that's a whole nother component of education that plays into so much of the overall evaluation of our school system as well.
I think it would be a great learning experience just to meet those students. There's 3 sites. There's a halfway house kind of, and then 2 sites within 2 different jails. But I think it was important for me as a board member to see that. I'm not sure everybody's seen that, but I encourage anybody who's not visited that program, that would be the place to go.
That's the one that if they add it to it, I'm going to ask if I can come back and participate in Class 3.
Okay, awesome.
Just for that one day. But I also do want to share with you that one of the best things was the opportunities your students had to not only be ambassadors of their schools, but probably in just about every occasion, the meals that we ate during the day were provided by your students, and it was another tremendous experience for us.
Ms. Wyatt?
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to all of you for giving up a day every month is a big commitment. I also hear that you start very early in the morning. I don't know why Ashley and T. Michael do that to you. I'm sorry. But I just want to say thank you for taking the time out to really understand what we do every day. When we started the initial conversations about this program, it was to make better champions for the school district. And it's hard to, we have lots of people that want to sing our praises, but how do we equip them to know what's really going on? So thank you all for taking the time to participate. And a huge thank you to T. Michael, who not only gave up 1 year, but 2 years. And as a city manager, to give up 1 day a month to be with us, we really appreciate that. So thank you.
Ms. Fields?
Yes, I apologize for not being earlier, but I had a doctor's appointment, but all is good. I wanted to know if anybody had an aha moment.
I'm speaking as valedictorian. No, you voted. My favorite day, my aha moment day, was the Karen Siegel day. I didn't even know that existed. I had no idea. And that was a really special place. Like the teachers, the students, everyone in there was just so genuine, and they loved their job. I also liked being a lunch lady. That was good. But that day was the best day.
And Board Member Fields, I'll just point out, if you look at the screen, this is one of my favorite pictures, and I think it was probably the most impactful part of that day was they did a dance party that day at Karen Siegel, and Dr. Organtola dancing with one of the students there. There was so much joy, not just from those students, but from these folks, that you couldn't walk away and not feel warm. So
Thank you for sharing that.
And Jen, that is true. My daughter works at Gino Dell, so I'm familiar with that school and how wonderful it is. But, you know, I'm pretty familiar with the school system, and I've done a lot of the tours through the leadership classes, but the whole aha moment is the entire system. Everything that you do is unbelievable. I mean, transportation, every department, the technology lady, oh my gosh. I mean, she's in the back. Thanks. All of these folks right here. This is an amazing machine, and I'll tell you, as a leader, a little tiny leader that I am, you're only as good as your big leader, number one, and as your board, number two, and then, you know, hopefully we're the ones out here that can ripple out from what you're giving us, because you're giving us a lot. So there is no one aha moment for me. It's the whole component of this engine that's working so well right now, because it hasn't always. And we're just so lucky to be in Polk County, Florida. So everything's an aha moment to me. Sorry, that's a little extra.
Is my mic still on?
Yes, ma'am.
But I think from I'm a public product of Polk County Public Schools, and from the a lot of times neglected northeast side, but I will say, or at least perceived neglect of the northeast side. But what the aha moment for me, and I had family that's been employees of the system and have been for a long, long time. But I'll say the transformation. I know we talked about the elected versus appointed superintendents, and Mr. Hyde was very insightful on a lot of that stuff. But for me, the aha is the transformation that we're going through as a county, which fills my heart with joy from our educational system. We have been the butt of a lot of jokes for a long time, but no longer will we be. And I think that our leadership, and I credit that to the leadership, to you as leaders, to those folks as leaders, to our principals, to our teachers. Everybody in Polk County Public Schools is a leader and takes it to heart and is passionate about it. And it makes me proud, to advocate on behalf of that and the job that you guys are doing, moving forward. I see the shift. It's a slip like the battleship in the bathtub. We talk about that, but the shift is happening, and it's refreshing and happy for me to know that my kids and my grandkids are now going to be products of this as well. And gosh, what opportunities they have that I never got, because I'm old, but they have them, and I'm so happy for that, and that's thanks to this leadership.
Ms. Fields.
And I would thank each of you for your comments. And I said this in a couple of work sessions ago. It's a poor frog who doesn't praise his own pond. And so I just encourage you to help us to praise our pond. We're doing so many great things, but sometimes those things are not seen, they're overlooked. So if you can help us to do that, we would greatly appreciate it, and we thank you all for all that you do in your community and our community to make it a better place. Thank you.
There are no further board member questions or comments.
Okay, and with that, we'll ask you when we call your name to come down, and please remain up front here. There will be a final class photo, and it will be taken with the school board. So I'm going to begin with the tallest guy in the room, Chad Barron. Followed by Dr. Bogert. Stacy Campbell-Dominic. Yeah, where is the music?
It won't come on for some reason.
Stephanie Cologne. Jean Conrad. There it is. Just in time. Christina Kreiser Jackson. Look at these guys. They're so well schooled. They know where they fall alphabetically. Terrell Griffin. Katrina Hill. Matt Hinton. Michael Huff. Valedictorian Jen Lay. Terry Martinez. Tracy Mounsey. Rusty Mooten. Matt Mucci. Oh, I thought you were going to zoom in, Matt. Okay. Yay! Callie Neslin. Dr. Oguntola.
Somebody else not wearing their boot.
Trish Pfeiffer. Hal Powell. Julie Townsend. Jason Willie. Brian Yates. And Miss Lindsay Zimmerman.
Yates. All right.
Oh no. You're good. We got liability insurance.
Suitable for framing. Grad school. Here we go.
Eckerd drugs, remember that?
Oh my gosh, yes. Every Publix had an Eckerd's Drugs
Oh
right
yeah,
next
right
door.
there. We're old now.
Happy graduation, everyone. Bye, everyone. Next up, we have Ms. Candy Amato, Senior Director for Charter Schools, who's here to talk about upcoming charter contracts. Ms. Amato.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, so we currently have 2 contract renewals before you today. They are 2 high-performing contracts. One is for Ridgeview Global Studies Academy that serves grades K through 12. They are asking for that 15-year contract with an expiration date of 2039. The next contract is for Polk State Chain of Lakes Collegiate High School, serving grades 10 through 12, with a 15-year contract expiring in 2039. It is standard contract language, and a summary of the changes has been provided.
Ms. Amato, I see no questions or comments. We'll move on to the next item. If a board member wants to come back to it, please speak. Lakeland Montessori Schoolhouse and Lakeland Montessori Middle School consolidation.
So both Lakeland Montessori Schoolhouse, which serves grades K through 6, and then Lakeland Montessori Middle, which serves grades 7 and 8, are seeking to consolidate to serve under one MSID number and one contract. They will consolidate, relocating all of the funds and the property at the middle school to the schoolhouse MSID number, 8141. Everything will be documented and stored appropriately. Once approved, we will work with Information Service Technology to update the Department of Ed with all of the changes.
Ms. Amato, I see no questions or comments. Thank you very much. Next item before the board, today's workshop is proposed rule development for multiple school board policies. We have with us today Ms. Teresa Griffin, Senior Coordinator, Public Records and School Board Policy. She's also the proud spouse of one of our Inside PCPS graduates. We also have Chad Davis, Staff Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Hyde. I told my husband that he had to leave as soon as they got their diplomas. I was like, you don't need to stay for my presentation. Go finish your class. So we have a few policies before you today. I'm going to go through them and take a break after, they're kind of grouped according to which department they fall under. So I'll take a break after each one if you guys have questions instead of going through them all. So the first three that I'll go through, the first one is 5517.01, which is bullying and harassment. And you guys first saw these policy revisions in March. We brought them to you at the March 19th special work session. After that work session, we had our learning support staff take another look at it, and there were a few additional revisions that they made. This is a replacement policy, so all of the language that's just in black and white on the policy is Neola's replacement language for the policy. And then there's some additional, you'll see green and red on the policy where learning support staff just added some additional language related to social media platforms and applications and how that relates to how we do things in the district. And then policy 6490 is legal services for employees, officers, and public officials. And this is just a technical change. It just changes the statutory citations in that policy. And then policy 7251 is logo and mascot. And at the last work session on April 9th, Jason Geary and Mr. Hyde spoke a little bit about how we don't have any formal policies or procedures related to logos and mascots when Inwood Elementary presented their new mascot to you guys. And so this was a chance for us to establish a policy that will kind of set the guidelines for schools reaching out to our public relations department when they want to change their logo or mascot. And then there's going to be more specific procedures. If you looked at the policy, it appears to be rather brief, and that is by design. The procedures that Mr. Geary is working on, and those are already being shared with Mr. Hyde, and we're working through that, and I know he'll share that with you guys once they're ready, but it'll go more in depth about, they'll have a committee that they work with, someone from their SAC committee, like community members, different district staff that needs to be a part of it. It'll spell it out in a lot more detail because those are more the procedural things of how that'll take place. So that'll come to you at a later date. So I'll take a break if you guys have questions about any of those three that we just went over.
Seeing none.
All right, and we will move on. The next three policies are all related to facilities. So policy 6330, acquisition of professional architectural engineering, landscape architectural, or land surveying services. So this is recommended as a replacement policy to reflect changes in House Bill 441. It increases the maximum dollar amount for services, and then additional revisions include updating definitions and statutory citations, as well as revising monetary thresholds applicable to continuing contracts, and then revising the spending cap as it relates to Category 5 expenditures. That's all based on Florida Statute 287.055. Policy 7100, facilities planning. The revisions proposed to this policy are the result of Florida Statute 1013.385, which allows certain exceptions to construction requirements, basically new flexibility for school district construction. And then policy 7430.01, environmental health, is based on Florida Statute 1012.13.1, and it includes language that if unsafe or unsanitary conditions are reported in a facility, then that facility or the portion of that facility must be withdrawn from use until the condition is corrected or removed. Any questions on the facilities policies?
Seeing none?
We will move along to the next. We're going to do 2 slides. This will be 6 different policies. These all are under business services, so like finance and purchasing, those type of policies. Policy 6440, cooperative purchasing, revised to accommodate provisions in House Bill 897, which allows for the formation of a bona fide group or association of employers in order to sponsor a group health plan. Policy 6480, expenditures. This is updated based off Florida Statute 106.113. It provides more clarity to school board and district personnel regarding conduct that is considered appropriate under Florida law. And that includes reporting official actions in an accurate and impartial manner, as well as providing factual information in response to an inquiry. Unemployment compensation. This policy is just updated based on, like several years ago, the state changed the name from the Unemployment Appeals Commission to the Reemployment Assistance Appeals Committee. And so you'll just see that the word unemployment is replaced with reemployment throughout the policy. So that's not mandated, but it's just consistent with the current terminology in the state right now. Policy 6550 is travel and expenses, which is revised to include optional language for addressing reimbursement for attendance at virtual trainings and conferences. It also modifies the method for calculating mileage for reimbursement, which just uses the travel reimbursement calculator for in-county travel, and then the Florida Department of Transportation electronic mapping system for travel outside of the county. And these are things that we've already been doing. It's just updated in policy now. Policy 7450, property inventory, is updated based on Florida Rule 691-73.006, and it reflects changes in the President's management agenda, just focusing on improved stewardship for public funds. And then it also revises the inventory of our property. Previously, we were doing that every 2 years, and now we will inventory every year. Policy 7455, accounting system for capital assets. That's more of a technical change. It just changes the word fixed to capital throughout the policy. Do you have any questions on those?
Seeing none?
We will move on to our last group of policies, and these all fall under our IST department. So policy 7440.03 is small unmanned aircraft systems, which are basically drones. So this is a new optional policy that just sets some guidelines for the use of drones. And there were 2 options in the policy. One would completely prohibit the use of drones, and the other option, which is the one that staff is recommending, it allows the use of drones, but under limited circumstances. So there's guidelines in the policy that would allow for that. Policy 7540, technology. The revisions to this policy include requiring parents to annually sign the student technology acceptable use and safety form. There's also a technical change to the comprehensive technology plan. It prohibits students from using district technology resources to access social media. And it requires staff to comply with policy 7544 regarding staff access to social media for personal purposes. Policy.
Ms. Miller?
Thanks, Teresa. And I just want to say I appreciate you taking questions ahead of time so we don't have to ask them all here. I just want to clarify with the drone policy. I know everyone's aware that our schools use them, especially CFAA and some of our high schools. So we're going to create procedures that don't prohibit what we're already doing with these.
Yes, that's my understanding. I know that I spoke with Kitty Sawyer about it a little bit, and Ms. Pasco, I see she's on her way up, so she probably has more to add, but that there will be specific guidelines set forth for what that looks like. But I don't think the intention is to, I don't want to speak for Ms. Pasco, so.
Thank you.
Yes.
IT lady.
The IT lady, yes. The technology lady, yes, there will be processes and procedures.
Okay.
You want to have the programs that need to use those capabilities, additionally our PR department to be able to utilize it, but you also want to have a policy so that someone else can't fly a drone over our facilities that we don't want. So
Can we
yes.
restrict airspace?
Why do you ask me these questions?
I don't know that we can.
I don't think we can restrict it, but
Yeah.
you can have a policy so that if someone uses a drone and they're not supposed to, and it goes against the policy and they didn't ask permission, then you can hold that person accountable.
So the programs we have now that are used with these drones, do they meet your requirements? Or are we going to have to invest in new programs?
No, they all meet the requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Wyatt?
Sorry, mine's the next one, so I'll let her actually give it first.
Mr. Sharpless?
I have a question just on this one. So I was reading in the options here, the one that says pursuant to Florida High Schools Athletic Association. So when
Are we on student internet safety? I'm sorry.
no, we're on small unmanned.
Oh, we're going back to drones? Okay. Mhm.
And so my question was, when I went this past fall to a lot of I did like a district-wide, I went to a football game pretty much every Friday night.
Okay.
And many times I would see drones filming. So is that now, according to this policy, we're not allowed to do that anymore? Was that coming down from FHSAA or?
They have a process, so we meet with Dan Talbot, we make sure we apply for that, and there are processes and procedures that they prohibit certain drones at certain times of the games, yes.
Okay.
So we just make sure, once we do this, we want to make sure we're in compliance with FHSAA. We want to make sure we're in compliance with everything else in this policy. Basically, once it's done, then we do the procedures and make sure we work with Mr. Hyde so that we have all those processes in place.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all my question.
Proceed, Ms. Griffin.
Okay, I think I was going through the student internet safety and acceptable use policy. So there's a technical change that just removes an outdated opening sentence in that policy. And then other provisions include requiring students to adhere to the Code of Student Conduct when using technology resources at home or when they're connected to the district's network. And then requiring staff to monitor online activities of students while at school. And 7540.04 is very similar, that it removes that same opening sentence, that outdated sentence in the beginning of the policy. And additional revisions are based on Senate Bill 258 and House Bill 379, including following the district's internet safety plan and adhering to the prohibited list of applications as identified by the Florida Department of Management Services.
Hold there. Dr. Allen?
Thank you, Superintendent. Anytime I see acceptable use or student internet consumption and usage, definitely want to advocate for some policy as it relates to artificial intelligence. And just as recent within this last week, we're having to deal with this conversation within our home as it relates to what is acceptable usage of AI. Just the say Grammarly functions comparative to pro-Grammarly functions, whether it's AI, whether it's infringing on some of those things that we expect within the classroom and so forth. And I think it's just going to be muddier and muddier as we continue. So I'm not sure if we have a plan in place to bring forward some AI policy, and on top of that, some procedures and policies that would ideally be in our student code of conduct, so we can sort of clear the air on that one. But
yeah, I'll let Ms. Pasco. I know Ms. Pasco and Chad Davis have spoken a little bit about the AI policy, about potentially bringing that. So I'm not sure where we are on that. I'll let.
We are not, so I'll answer this.
Okay.
We are not. So the board has expressed this interest multiple times. Our staff have not attended the proper training, and nor do they have the appropriate resources to make a recommendation at this time. So once that is concluded, we will bring a recommendation for a policy and procedures to the board for adoption that will impact both staff and students. But at this time, there is no plan. So, Ms. Wyatt?
Thank you. At the end of policy 7540.03, the student internet safety and acceptable use, it has crossed through so students are prohibited from accessing social media platforms through the use of internet access provided by the district unless expressly directed by teacher solely for educational purposes. That unless expressly directed by the teacher is crossed through. My concern is where, and full disclosure, my college degree is in social media and society. There is much of a market for that, and we have many marketing academies that social media is really part of that curriculum. So I want to make sure that is not making it where our students would not be able to have access to that. Is there either do we have a policy specifically where it regards to curriculum for social media, or the other other area of concern would be for internships. So I know one of the things that Superintendent Hyde has talked about at length is being able to use some of our own students to help with some of the school Facebook pages, to help with in our PR department. And I want to make sure that they are not restricted from having use if they need it for educational purposes.
Okay. I know that I spoke to Ms. Pasco a little bit about that earlier. I'm going to let her give you a little more insight on that.
Thank you.
Yes, so that statement is based upon an individual teacher choosing, for instance, I was a social studies teacher saying, let's go check out Facebook. And that's not really manageable. To your point, if there's a curricular need and the internship need, we can, one, go back, and Mr. Davis and I talked about it, and look at another policy that would then refer to this policy and would give extra guidance for that. We also can work up processes and procedures. So I think the intent is to ensure that we do not prevent those types of curricular activities from occurring or the internship occurring. So Mr. Davis and I are going to go back and make sure we have that taken care of.
Okay, thank you. And I would, just for the record, I would prefer that be in policy and the procedure be how to do it, but I want to make sure that our policy reflects that we're not restricting social media for
And I think, Mr. Davis, we discussed having another policy to address that, correct?
Okay.
Yes, so we're going to do another policy and make sure we have that addressed and then bring that in front of the board.
Thank you. My other question, and it is not in any of these policies, but I feel like this is the section, and you and I have talked about this at length. But do we have a policy that is specifically regarding posting students on social media? You know, the thing that gives me the most heartburn is where I see a school post a picture of a student and congratulate Ann Pasco and Mr. Davis's first grade class for meeting this AR goal, and then shows the 5 books. There's so much information about this kid that is now on the internet for everyone. But I think that's different than right now. We do have a policy that they can sign whether or not pictures can be used. But I think we've gotten to a point that whether I want my kid to be in the yearbook or whether I want them and all of their information on social media are two different things. Are we looking to explore different policies for those? Is this where that would fit in?
I can address that. There is a policy that Mr. Bridges and I are working on that's going to cover a lot of that more in depth. There's a lot of constitutional issues that we have to consider when it comes to free speech and things like that. So we are looking at that in depth, but we are aware of that concern, and it's a new day and the kind of stuff that's out there. So we're going to address that and pretty extensively with the new policy.
And then the last questions in that same vein would be as far as who has access to our Facebook. I know we have several schools that have parents or PTA presidents that are running those school Facebook pages. Is that something that we would be able to address in that policy as well?
Yeah, that's already addressed in another policy.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Continue, Ms. Griffin.
The final policy is Policy 8330, which is student records. And this is revised to incorporate updates from multiple legislative sessions. Some of the revisions are related to the retention of threat assessment records and protecting the privacy of students, as well as new definitions and options related to the maintenance and transfer of student records. So I know, Ms. Wyatt, to your point earlier, there are some things in the student records policy that addresses like pictures of students and like what we're allowed to do, and it gives parents the opportunity to opt out for that. But there's also Florida Rule 6A 1.0955, which is the maintenance and transfer of student records. And then there are additional revisions reflect the change in the federal rule, which authorizes the release of email addresses as part of directory information to military recruiters, unless the parents opt out of having that information released. And that is it for policies today.
I see no question. Oh, Ms. Fields.
Thank you, Superintendent Hyde. This actually is for you. I wanted to see what is the timeline for the policy that relates to mascots.
So the policy is what you have before you. I'll develop a procedure based off the examples and experiences we've had to date with new schools. We have a well-developed procedure that we follow for a new school to launch a mascot, select its colors, those types of things. What we do not have is a procedure or steps to follow when a school wants to request a change. And there can be a lot of reasons why a school needs to change their mascot, including legislative mandates. There are other states, for example, that have passed laws that schools may not use a Native American imagery or a mascot unless you get the express written permission from a Native American tribe, local tribe. And so if Florida were to pass a similar statute, then we would have to change any of our mascots that, like, for example, Lake Gibson would have to change its mascot and its designation. So we don't have a procedure per se currently in place. Mr. Geary, in working through the most recent recommendation for a mascot change, has essentially drafted what that's going to look like. So I'll be bringing that to the board as well so that you get a chance to see that and ask any questions that you may have regarding that process.
And thank you, because we went through something similar with the logo for Kathleen High School. And I think there was a sense of really not knowing what the procedure was. And I know that Mr. Gary helped with that and his team. And I think it's just very important that whatever we decide as procedures, that everyone knows what it looks like.
Yeah, and we're going through, Mr. Davis and Ms. Griffin are assisting with going through every single board policy where it makes a reference to a procedure being established, either affirming that we have it, reviewing it to make sure it's current, and in the absence of a true procedure that we've captured somewhere in a document or a handbook, we will be creating those. And there are quite a few that have to be amended and created similar to this. And there are lots of reasons why a mascot maybe have to be changed. Sometimes, especially historically, we've seen instances where a school may have adopted a mascot that's actually copywritten. It has a copyright associated with it. And then that company says, well, we're no longer allowing schools or other entities. It's usually, you see a lot of litigation at times between daycares and companies like Disney and other Universal Studios because they use their mascot in their advertising without permission and it's copyright material. So those types of situations do come up, but we want to make sure that it's a clear, consistent, thorough process for everyone. So, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Mr. Sharpless?
I have a question on the most recent policy, 8330, student records. So on page 4, towards the bottom, it's request to deviate from student's legal name. And it says that parents who approve of their students being referred to by a name other than their legal name, such as a nickname, must fully complete the district's electronic or hard copy parental consent form. That came from a couple questions. Did that come from the state legislation or state? Is that from a legislation or is that rule?
It's a rule.
It's a rule. Okay. And so, does this prohibit any staff from using those names, or okay, so completely, unless a form's filled out?
Correct. The rule is pretty prohibitive. There must be, and we went through that. Does the deviation include common shortening of names? And yes, it does.
John from Jonathan.
Yep. It captures that. The rule that's in place now. I believe the remedy for that is pretty much just telling us not to do that. So it's not a very strong rule, but the state did give us a rule that we had to have these forms filled out with the acceptable deviations of legal names in a form, written parental consent. And I believe we're doing that electronically.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Miller?
I just want to go back to school mascots, and I know the procedures are coming later. I just think that it's useful whether they're moving from to a magnet school or just rebranding. Some of our schools just need to rebrand. When I was in junior high, Denison was the Rebels or something, and I think the community wanted to rebrand, particularly about Native American mascots, because I know I have at Lake Gibson. There is a Native American community in North Lakeland off Moore Road, and so in the community, there's such strong feelings about the Braves and that whole campus that I hope in that procedure we're including heavy community input, and hopefully we can replicate or at least request from that community similar to Florida State's rules where we can partner and see if that's something they want to be in our process with us if we have to go and do that in the future.
So the procedures that are being worked on do include community members and also school advisory, a member from the school advisory council. So there are those parameters in there for having community input.
There are no further questions or comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, the next item, I'll bring up Ms. Kelly Jarrett and Andrew Baldwin They're here for the Stronger Connections Grant Award to provide you a summary of the grant activities that will be completed with that grant. This was a $3 million competitive grant, so kudos to the team for their hard work.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So the Stronger Connections grant, of course, is a $3 million grant, as Mr. Hyde indicated. It's under the Federal Safer Communities Act, so it was, of course, competitive. There were 55 to 60 grants that were awarded in the state of Florida, and we are one of them, so we're excited about that. We do have a project period. You'll notice it did start in January. We just got the grant award notification April 11th, so we'll be making a shift to that timeline, but we're excited about that. We're covering 3 different activities within this grant, including English Language Learners Emergency Response Language Immersion Program, bullying harassment support through positive behavior interventions and support, and of course, creating some additional support for our community outreach program. So just to talk about some of these programs, the English Language Learner Emergency Response Program, we're going to develop a pilot. This is just going to help the staff on campuses better support the community in an emergency situation. So some of the words we need to use for our ELL learners, that is kind of a focus here. We're starting with Spanish, and then we're going to expand to Haitian Creole and ASL. So I think that's exciting. Bullying, harassment, and support through positive behavior interventions. We're going to add some additional support, 6 PBIS facilitators, and that will help better support our needs. The whole grant is based upon our needs assessment and the needs within our schools and communities. So we're going to be evaluating that data and support for attendance and attendance community outreach, but our better support based upon the needs in our schools. And then community outreach, we're going to add 5 additional community outreach facilitators specifically to address the needs within for our ELLs and our SWD students. We're also going to split fund migrant home school liaisons to allow staff to provide supports to our non-migrant students. We have identified that as a need and want to support that through this grant. Here is some of the funding information for each area. And of course, totals out to $3 million. Do you have any questions?
Ms. Miller.
Yes.
Totals out to $3 million. I just have a quick question. I know we get this ahead of time in a workshop for it to be approved, but when you just stated that we're going to have all these community outreach people, is there, I guess, a superintendent question, is there a way to get an update on the work they've done or the need that they've met or the needs greater than what we've been able to provide? I would like follow up on this, if possible. Thank you.
I see no further questions or comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item is Mr. Warren, Associate Superintendent for Human Resource Services. And this is the HR, Human Resources Services Updated Employee Handbook.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're very excited to bring you a revised employee handbook. It's been several years in the making, and I want you to know that we're strategically here today. We were before you, I think it was at your last work session, with several board policy updates for HR relative to several different aspects that impacted our employee handbook. So as those have become board approved, we now are in a position where we wanted to revise our employee handbook to reflect all of those and bring them to you so we would have them front loaded and ready for our new season of recruitment. And so I want to begin there. I want to say that what you have in front of you is a formal draft. We are going to take it into the Watermark Polk County Public Schools format once board approved. The document before you today has been an exhaustive review across multiple departments, and I want to just kind of give some of them credit. These departments include, but are not limited to, because it reached out and touched so many folks, but public relations, the superintendent's office, human resources, equity and diversity, employee and labor relations, legal, personnel, facilities, information technology, risk management, and payroll. So what you're looking at is really a comprehensive handbook that we're going to provide to all of our employees as they come through as a new hire. And it incorporates all of our updated board policies and any changes to statutes that you've been tracking as well over the last weeks that precede us being here. The handbook before you flows, I think, better than our previous. We did reach out and review handbooks from other entities and took feedback. I do want to say that the lead department on this was inside our recruitment area. Jessica McNamara started the process and Caroline Giroux finished it, bringing all of these groups together for their collaborative input. So I want to give them definite gratitude for the work they've done. Next, if you'll look with me to the first few pages of the executive summary relative to the handbook. The handbook is a comprehensive resource for anything an employee may need to reference, such as employee expectations, benefits, technology, HR-related procedures, and more. The revised handbook reflects updated policies and statutes. A thorough review was implemented across all departments to evaluate these changes based on policy, statutes, and practices. The handbook will be a foundational reference for employees from their start date with Polk County Public Schools. And upon board approval, the Public Relations Department will add Polk County Public Schools branding, logo, and watermarks, and integrate graphics and update formatting so it's visually kind of appealing to read and not just a document with a bunch of words on it. The handbook revision process, stakeholders were first identified, then current information was distributed to the designated departments. Those departments reviewed and analyzed and made updates according to the new policy, statute, and practices specific to their area. Once updates were made and finalized by departments, the Public Relations Department reviewed for grammatical errors, and then we also had the legal team review as well to ensure compliance with our laws, regulations, and policies. Going forward, relative to our new employees accessing this document, it will be embedded into the onboarding process. Employees will review this information through the updated new employee orientation and be required to sign the document. Employees will have access to the document digitally and can sign it as part of their new employee orientation process. Now, with respect to all of those folks that are already employed with us, the current employee access, once board approved, the Human Resources Department will develop a plan to communicate and distribute the updated employee handbook. And then again, I'm going to be looking to require some sort of signature come back on those. Because this becomes a document that we'd like to reference as we go through matters in HR and other departments where we can reach out and say, you're apprised, you're trained, or you are acknowledging that you understood what the expectations were for any of those items that are in this handbook. And so we can go back and offer that you've had training at acknowledgement. So with that being said, I'll stop and see if there are any questions, and we'll go from there.
Mr. Warren, I'll start. Just curious because as I scroll through, there seem to be broken links and things in here as far as the hyperlinks or the bookmarks. Was that because when we transferred this over into board docs, they went bad, or are those things that are still being addressed?
No, so that's exactly correct. If you look, it started with, when I reviewed this on board docs, where you see all of the error bookmark not defined, that was a walk across into board docs, because I went back and checked the original.
I didn't want to assume, but I kind
and
of
the PDF, that was not there. And I'd be happy to provide the original PDF with those appropriate links, should you like.
And as far as search functionality in the actual document, will they be able to click on these topics and it'll hyperlink them to that section? Or
That is correct.
Okay, perfect.
And then also the control find function as well should work within the document in its entirety. It is somewhat longer than our previous document, but we feel it's very comprehensive.
Yeah, I bring it up because it looks different than when I looked at it previously, so that's why I wanted to make sure it was not an error on my part, so,
No,
thank you, sir.
It was in the walkover. Okay.
Ms. Wyatt?
Thank you. My question was along the same line, so I appreciate you asking it. Do we have is there a red line copy that exists that we can see the changes, or is it so comprehensive that
It's pretty comprehensive.
it's just red?
But Ms. Wyatt, I'd be happy to provide you the previous and then put this one beside it. We started through the strike through, but as we began to work with the departments, I kept hearing feedback that we just need to start over. We want to take what we like from here and drop it here, and so that's what we did.
That would be great if you could provide both of
Yes,
those, not through board docs, so that we can see all the
Just
links
send
and
it to you
things.
individually.
That'd be great.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And I'll send you the clean PDF with the correct links as well.
Thank you.
Ms. Miller.
Thanks. I have two things. You referenced this hadn't been updated in a while, like our other documents that are district-wide that are reviewed annually. Is the goal to review this annually, to update it? How often is this going to be looked at?
I think best practice would be annually, because you want it to reflect the policies and the statutes that are being updated.
That was the reason I was asking, because it could change next session and then they're going to have old material.
That's correct.
So I would hope that, I don't know if that's a procedure, but I would hope that it would be reviewed annually. Second, this is going to be most used electronically. Are there hard copies available of this for the schools that request them or people that request them?
I would say yes, but my response would be if it's a PDF and available in that electronic format, it could be
They could
downloaded
print.
and printed.
They used to actually print them.
We printed hundreds.
Thousands.
And then they had to sign just the last page. And
Right.
keep the rest on their desk or otherwise. But we've moved more to the electronic access piece.
So would the hiring person at the individual site be responsible for making sure this has been reviewed? Is it going to, so is there a signature collected?
Yes, that's where I'm anticipating. I'm not providing a lot of details because I'm still designing and waiting to see how I can do that to make sure that the information gets out, but not create a burden on those that need to do it as well.
I would just request there's a clear procedure, because you could be doing that really well at one school. In the past, we've seen a few schools be on top of it, and then the other schools, the staff is saying they've never seen the document.
Right.
And so whatever you decide at the end, I would like to have that information.
You got it.
Thank you.
I will go on record. I kind of have it in my mind. I'm going to be working toward our back-to-school event, where principals they have all their staff in a faculty meeting or otherwise, so we can have some time to review and or make it where teachers or all staff have time to review. But these also have to go out to staff that's not just school-based as well, so it's much more comprehensive than that as well.
Ms. Cunningham.
Thank you, Superintendent Hyde. My question is, if I have some suggested revisions, who would I send that to?
Would you please send that to myself and Caroline Giroux?
Okay. I will do that. Thank you, sir.
Ms. Fields.
My question is about folks who don't have a printer and wanting to have a copy. How are we going to handle that? It kind of goes back to the comments that I've made before, Superintendent Hyde, about the report cards. I know that we say that report cards are available if requested, but I find that parents still have difficulty getting copies of their report card. And so my question is how are we going to ensure that folks who want hard copies can have access to that?
So all of our employees have access to printers at their workplaces, so there shouldn't be any reason why an employee would not be able to print out a hard copy of this for them. I'm somewhat cautious about printing off several thousand of these just to have them sit in a warehouse or sit under a desk and collect dust. So I think that the simple fact that it'll be available in a PDF and they have ready access to multiple printers on their work sites, that they'd be able to do it there without any reservation. But or I'll speak to Mr. Warren and maybe we can agree to provide every school with 5 to 10 copies. But with so many employees, 14,000, I just don't know how we would gauge how many hard copies we'd need. But again, I think we operate on the assumption they could print them themselves, or we can provide a small quantity to each school.
Yeah, because I'm not asking that we do it for every employee, but I think that we need to make sure that they have access to it if need be.
Yes, ma'am.
I think that's a great point. Thank you.
Okay, there are no further questions or comments on that item. Thank you. Mr. Bridges, could I ask a point of clarification on that last item? Mr. Warren indicated that this is being brought before the board because the board has to approve a handbook. That would not be my understanding, because it's procedural. Would you mind clarifying for me? I absolutely, in full transparency, I believe the board needs to see the handbook and have access to the handbook. And obviously, the handbook is derived from board policy and expectations and stated statutes and/or rule. But does the handbook, an HR handbook, come back to the board for approval?
A policy is an agency statement of general applicability. If it rises to that level, then of course it would have to go through rulemaking. First question I would have is, has the board approved it in past years? Brian, do you know? Has it been approved or is it just presented? I think that is correct. I'll be happy to look at historically and make sure, but I believe it is presented, but it is not adopted by the board as a rule.
Yeah, okay. I thought I heard earlier that the board would have to vote on this, and I wanted to make sure, because I don't see it being brought back for board adoption.
I will verify that, Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you. Next item is recommendation for Travis Tech College for Dr. Ken James. We have David Wiggs, director at Travis Tech College, here to do the provide the recommendation.
Thank you, Superintendent Hyde, board members. Dr. Kenneth James, thank you for allowing me here to recommend one of my predecessors. And I believe there was some conversation with Dr. James and Superintendent Hyde, and previous administrations, there were some discussions about that Dr. Kenneth James was one of the last directors at Travis Technical College that was, quote unquote, completely site-based management. He did an excellent job as his years of service, and there was discussion about nominating him for director emeritus. And he had some conversations, perhaps with some board members here, he had mentioned to me, and with previous superintendents, and then it just kind of died on the vine. And so he approached myself through Superintendent Hyde and came in, and we met, and he told me his history of working with Travis Technical College. And I invited him to come and speak to our school advisory council that we had on open house last month. And he did so and gave a fabulous presentation. And so a motion was set forth by one of our board members on the advisory council, our chair, and it was so moved that we recommend through the appropriate steps that Dr. Ken James be recommended to the board to receive the award of Director Emeritus. And I don't know if he is here today, but he did quote, and Ms. Fields, when you said it is a poor frog that does not praise his pond, when he came and spoke to our school advisor, he was not bragging on himself, but he was bragging of and praising the work that he did collectively for the district and for Travis Technical College. And so when you sang that, when you said that earlier, I'm like, yes, that rings true. So I'm just here today to tell you that on behalf of myself and Travis's School Advisory Council, we recommend that, and then we however, Superintendent Hyde, however you choose to do that, it is the recommendation by our board.
It is, just to give the board a little bit of history, it's my understanding that historically we've only done this one other time. I do not have the right notebook with me. I was looking for the notes on that. I'd had some conversations with my predecessor and with others as it relates to this. I spoke to Ms. Fields about this as well. And so it's typically an honor that's given to that's afforded within institutions of higher education. But since Travis and Ridge are considered technical colleges and they are eligible for college accreditation in those regards, it would be an applicable title and an appropriate title to issue at this time. The one thing that we would work on beyond today, and once the board approves this in a future subsequent meeting, there would be more specific criterion and procedures put in place for how this type of recommendation can be made. The board already has a process in place. As you know, you have both policy and procedures in place for naming conventions and naming rights. However, this is an elevated designation being afforded to one of our former administrators, one that's seemingly well earned, Had the pleasure of meeting the gentleman several times. I know Mr. Green's had conversations with him. I know that several of you probably have had conversations or know him well. And so I support the recommendation. But I just wanted to provide a little bit more context and clarity, especially for new board members, even for existing board members, because you've not seen this kind of request come before you during your tenure, to my knowledge. I think only Ms. Cunningham and Ms. Fields would have been on the board at the time when the prior designation was issued. But I'll find my notes and link back to who that was. But it's only been done one other time. So just wanted to provide that background and context. Ms. Fields.
And thank you, Superintendent Hyde, but that was prior to my time on the board with this title before Dr. James. And thank you, Mr. Wiggs, for your presentation. I think that if we go back and historically look at the work of Dr. James, as Superintendent Hyde said, it's something that is very well deserving. And it's just basically an honorary title, similar to naming a facility or naming a school in honor of someone. And when Dr. James approached me a while back, I'll be honest, it kind of got lost in the shuffle. But he didn't let it stay lost long. He came back, and thank God he did. And so Superintendent Hyde and I had several conversations about it, and personally, I think that he's very well deserving of it, and I would be more than happy when it's appropriate to make the motion that we approve the designation of Dr. Kenneth James, former director of the Travis Career Center, as Director Emeritus of the Travis Career Center. Thank you, Superintendent.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Allen.
Great to see you, Mr. Wiggs. Glad you're here with us. I think when this one came through, the big questions I had would, typically with this type of title, it does come with, rights and privileges and so forth. So, and with us not necessarily having anything in board policy, I had concerns. But again, I thoroughly enjoyed reading the manuscript from the meeting. I appreciate that. They gave me context. I actually looked out and read a couple Ledger articles as well on the work that he did with Travis. So that was very affirming, and to see that. So my thoughts were, at what point would we see, whether it's in Travis's, because I know you've been working on a manual as well at Travis. Would this go inside your manual, or is it something that would come to us as a board policy? I would like to have a little bit more clarification on that. And, is there certain rights and privileges that come with his title, in a sense?
And by definition, I looked it up, and it is a non-voting. Granting Director Emeritus status confers recognition for many years of outstanding service and is considered an honor bestowed on persons who have made extraordinary and sustained contributions to the foundation and the college. And then further definitions just from search says it is a non-voting status. So okay. Does that answer?
It does. I mean, I would say that some of the rights and privileges typically include a continuation of emails, email addresses, and so forth from a sustainability standpoint. So it'd just be nice that we would have that codified in some way moving forward.
Okay. Ms. Cunningham, sorry.
My question is, I would fully support this. I mean, Dr. James is a remarkable individual, and during, the time that I worked with him, he's just outstanding and paved a lot of paths for a lot of students and teachers during his time. Having said that, I also served for many years on the Ridge Technical Center's advisory board, both with Fred Ryder as leader and Lisa Harden. So my question would be, we probably need to look at that for equity. I don't know, again, that's the first time, that we've done it. I echo Ms. Fields' comment. I do not recall ever being here during a Director Emeritus award during my tenure. I could be wrong, though, but when you look it up, let us know who that individual was. So I would like to know, again, what the qualifications are, what this was based upon, because I want to make sure that if we've got other leaders in our system, if we know what the benchmark is, we can go forward with not only Dr. James, but perhaps others, to be equitable across Polk County. Thank you.
Great comments, great insight there too, Ms. Cunningham, thank you. Just to clarify, the only two sites in the entirety of Polk County are Travis and Ridge. That's it. That would qualify for this because of their unique designation as vocational trade colleges. And since the state of Florida, as of, I guess, a year ago, recognized that they would be able to be recognized fully as colleges, we are working towards that goal, but starting with individualized programs that will go through their own independent accreditation and therefore actually support Travis and Ridge somewhat differently, because converting those into true college courses allows us actually to adopt a different fee structure, because presently many of our programs are not adequately supported with the fee structure that the state imposes on our school district. And so transitioning to more of a college type campus or an official college campus, we can do more within the fees to ensure that the costs are being covered by the students participating in those programs more fully. But yes, we will definitely look and we'll create those criteria, and we can share that with their SAC and ask them to initiate that. That would not, obviously that's not something we would initiate, but you could through dialogue, or the SAC committee could through their director. And so we'll begin that process quickly. But to Dr. Allen's points, this brings zero access functionality. It is simply a title, and I don't mean to diminish it in any regard, but it would not provide this individual with any benefits and or access beyond what they would get as an individual. And so we can definitely define that and put those limitations, express those limitations in writing. So, Ms. Wyatt.
Thank you. And that was my question is, do we have policies regarding when we're naming buildings and things like that. Is this something that we need to develop a policy similar to that? And is there a timeline on when this would come back to us? Is that something that we could do in conjunction is developing that policy? Or
The goal would be to bring several of the items we've discussed today back to you. Now outside of the policies that have been discussed with you, it will come back during their normal timeline. Two of the additional areas that we've identified with mascots and with this item in particular will probably come back to the board in June.
Yeah, thank you.
You have, and I should clarify, you have existing policy that would be the procedure that we're outlining for you, that the district would be adopting to support that, the board policy.
Do you have that policy number by chance?
It would fall under the naming conventions, basically. That is the initial process that's outlined there as to how someone's is being recommended would be the similar process that we would have. We would put some additional criterion in there, given the specificity of this title and designation. So we would refer back to that, possibly add something or amend that policy to allow for this, or we can have that discussion at the time.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Fields?
I just want to have it on record that my understanding in talking to Dr. James is that he has no interest in gaining anything beyond it being an honorary title. He has no intention of having any special privileges because of the title. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that he is not seeking, he's not asking for anything other than to be given that title.
Thank you, Ms. Fields.
You're welcome.
There are no further questions or comments on that item. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next item is Mr. Rob Davis, Vera Mobility Agreement.
Good afternoon, board members, Superintendent Hyde, General Counsel Bridges, and of course our wonderful administrative team, Miss Wendy and Miss Yvette. Thank you for this time to have the opportunity to discuss the agreement with Vera Mobility. Before we get into the presentation, I'd like to talk about two two individuals that really did their due diligence, and that was Scott Reeves, our Director of Division Support, and Don Stevenson's our Director of Safety and Vehicle Services, that worked with the Office of Safe Schools, the Office of Safe Schools, the Sheriff's Department, our Purchasing Department, and if it weren't for working with all of those teams, we wouldn't be here today. Also, without the support of Mr. Hyde and our Sheriff, Mr. Grady Judd, we would not meet our timelines or goals. So with that, I'd like to, Mr. Reeves is not here, so Mr. Stevenson, I'll give Mr. Stevenson an opportunity to discuss.
Good afternoon. Real quick, I'm just going to read this. This is a summary of the process that we've worked through to get to this point. The safe and efficient transportation of students has always been the mission of support services. For many years, we have had bus drivers angered and frustrated by motorists who continually ignore the school bus stop arms and put our students' lives in jeopardy with little to no consequence. With the passing of House Bill 741, Enforcement of School Bus Passing Infractions, the state legislature has given school districts and law enforcement a powerful tool to help reduce stop arm violations and increase student safety. Support Services and the Polk County Sheriff's Office, through the Department of Safe Schools, began looking at the legislation in May of 2023 as it was approved by the governor. Meetings were held between the departments to determine the best path for the district. Vendors were identified and reviewed by the team to determine which provided the best solution and optimal cost structure for the district. Once Vera Mobility was determined as a viable vendor, we worked with our amazing purchasing department to become members of the Houston-Galveston Area Council, which allowed the district to use pricing for this service that had already been competitively bid and adopted by HGAC. The stop arm violation solution we chose is similar to other competitors, but the financial advantage to the district stands alone. With no out-of-pocket language written into our contract, the initiative is a 100% violator funded and will have no negative impact on the school district's operating budget. To meet our goal of getting a solution in place for the first day of 24-25 school year, we had to move quickly to get the contract in place, equipment ordered and scheduled to be installed over the summer. To the credit of school board staff in all departments assisting in this endeavor and vetting the contract before going to Superintendent Hyde for signature, everyone understood this will be a powerful tool to help ensure the safety of our students, our children, and grandchildren as they travel on our school buses. Thank you. And now we have our Vera Mobility rep, Mr. Matt, to speak on the process as a whole from Vera Mobility's perspective. There was a PowerPoint.
Yeah, there was a PowerPoint. Thank you, everybody. I mean, first off, I just want to say thank you for giving us time today. Thank you to Mr. Davis's team for all their hard work. Thank you to Sheriff's team for all their hard work. We've had a lot of meetings, a lot of conversations to go over this. Now, move forward. Yeah, I am not going to spend the 45 minutes to 90 minutes I could on this presentation here, but we're going to jump around. I'm happy to just show you a couple highlights, what it does, who we are, why they chose Vera Mobility, and then open up to ask and answer any questions you guys might have. So obviously, what Mr. Stevenson talked about is a huge danger, and we do studies every year, national studies, and they see over 43 million illegal passings, which endanger students in every situation. So because of that, the Florida legislature went through and passed some legislation to solve that. What we see is 99% of drivers that get a ticket and pay a ticket don't have a second violation. The goal is changing driver behavior. So this is the positive impact. And then over the course nationally, we see about a 10% decrease year over year of citations that you see within the school district. Now, Florida is a unique situation. You guys have a massive amount of tourism. You have a transitional population. So we understand that those percentages, although they're national and we see them all throughout the country in different areas, they're not going to exactly pertain to Florida. So it's going to be interesting to see over the first couple of years how that decreases over time. So if the change of driver behavior, you'll see it in the people that live in your community every day. You will see that. There will be some adjustment with the tourism and things like that we'll see different percentages. So we'll jump through. Why Vera Mobility? Why did they choose us, right? So we are the leader in automated enforcement nationally, and we are a global company. We have been in the state of Florida for over a decade, working with red light programs, and we're also currently working with different communities in the area, implementing school zone speed programs as well. So we have been here, we understand FDOT regulations, we understand how to work within the communities and in the state, and so that's a huge bonus for us to understand what's going on. In addition to that, we process over 50 million events annually. So a big key to stop arm enforcement isn't just the cameras that go on the side of the bus, but it's all the other pieces that go with it. So it's the automation of the program that we're not going to have the school have to be any part of. We're going to take that on ourselves. So once the image is captured on the side of the bus, we will process the events. We'll partner with law enforcement for them to approve those turn-in citations. Then we actually do the printing, the mailing. We integrate with courts. We do a PR campaign at the beginning of it. All of that stuff we do for you. And it's something we do with all of our programs, and we do it nationally and globally. So it's something we've been doing for well over 20 years. We understand how that process works. Now, that also includes the other stuff we do for you guys. Jump ahead to that, which is installation, maintenance, program management. We're going to cover that turnkey end-to-end solution for you. The goal of these programs, like Don said, is that they're cost neutral, so they're violator funded, and the school district will never come out of pocket to pay for them. And there shouldn't be a burden placed on the school to run the programs. So we will ensure that that burden is taken on by us, so that you guys, and especially the bus drivers, can do what they need to do for the safety of the students, which is just focus on driving the bus and the safety of the students in that situation. I'll go back a couple, and I just want to mention one more thing. Once again, I said violator funded. What does that mean? That means the paid citations from these programs will cover the cost of the program for us. And we incur the cost of the capital expense up front. So we're gonna cover the cost of the cameras, the installation, and the maintenance. And then we will actually do the operational expense, and all that will be paid by the violator fees. Now, what do you do with the money left over? That goes back to the school district. So there could be some net positive impact to the school district that can be used to different safety funds. I know they made some adjustments in legislation recently to allow it for trying to get more bus drivers, as everyone across the state is short bus drivers. So different areas that impact the school in a positive way. Timeline, I think we wanted to just talk one more thing about timeline. Is it's really important to the school and to the sheriff that we get this program active by the beginning of school year. So we're dedicated to spinning this up as fast as we can. Don, Scott's team, they're going to work with us to make sure the buses are accessible so we can get them installed over the summer when we have the most access. And then we can be live for the program and really put forth an impact right away for next school year.
Mr. Sharpless.
Just want to say first, I think it's very appropriate that you're bringing this forward on National School Bus Day, School Bus Driver Day. So that's huge. I've got a family member who's a bus driver, and I talk to other bus drivers, and this is an issue they say is prevalent in our community, is people just going right past the school stop bars. So first, I want to say that it's huge. It's important. The safety of our students is critical. And so that's something that I strongly support. A question I have for you is, are you currently partnering with any municipalities within Polk County, or working within Polk County for any of your any violations? Not necessarily stop bar, but I'm talking about other things like red lights, all that kind of stuff.
No, we currently work with Haines City and Lakeland, and we've been working with Lakeland for a really long time.
Okay, excellent. So Polk County's not somewhere it's new.
No, it's not somewhere new to us. We also have worked with, Orlando and Orange County, Hillsborough County and Tampa for well over, I think, 7 or 8 years each. So the area is very normal to us.
Well, hopefully we can change driver behavior.
That's the goal. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Ms. Miller?
I think this is more for Rob Davis and his team. There's been a lot of conversation about this since the legislation passed. A lot of vendors interested in this. I just want you to talk. First, I want to thank you for the in-depth questions you take from me on the regular basis, but also for the work that was done. If you want to talk a little bit about the process so the constituents know that there was history and vendor vetting done before this was chosen.
Allow Scott Reeves to
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. This has been a long process. As you said, and Mr. Sharpless, you alluded to the fact that bus drivers are they're very adamant about this. It's something that's been on our radar for years. So when the House bill passed, we worked with Safe Schools immediately to try to come up with a plan, look at the vendors, figure out what's out there, because this is new to Florida. So we looked at several different vendors. Vera being one of them, several other large ones being others. We did our homework. We talked to Safe Schools, making sure what's best for the district, because we're probably going to be the first district in Florida to have this. Once we figured out that Vera was right for us, we worked with our purchasing department. We figured out what the purchasing vehicle was on this, so we didn't have to reinvent the wheel. We went with Houston, Galveston area cooperative, yes, thank you, which was the easiest one to get on because that pricing had already been vetted, it had already been sent out. So we became a member of that cooperative, latched onto that pricing, negotiated the contract with Vera, and ran it through all the approvers.
Is there an investment? I know this is funded by the tickets it'll create, but is there an investment from the district to equip the buses with the cameras?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
No, this is all their labor, their hardware. All we got to do is show them where the bus is and get it put on. Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Cunningham?
Thank you, sir. My question is, I know that our buses, when we purchase them, come with warranties. And I'm wondering, how does adding a device onto that school bus affect the warranty that we have on our school buses as is? Is there an issue? Has that been discussed?
Yes, ma'am, and there's no impact on any impact our warranty whatsoever on this.
So where's the electrical for the cameras coming from? Is it going back and being wired into the school bus? That's why I'm saying.
Correct.
Right.
It uses the battery.
It does, of the school bus. Okay. And there's
no validation of a warranty because of that.
because of that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then cost-wise, I know we haven't really delved into that, but I mean, because, and of course, Scott, you're very careful in everything that you do. My question would be, this is financially feasible based on all of the ones that you looked at and went through to get to the point of choosing this gentleman's company. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I feel it's very appropriate for the district. Again, it is zero impact to our operating budget. This was the only company that offered a solution like that. Because one thing that we always have to look at is when you talk about the violations, well, that's fine while the school buses are out driving around and violations are occurring and we're educating people. But what about the summer months? What about Christmas when the buses are parked? With the other companies, we would still have to be paying that bill with no potential revenue coming in.
And we don't here.
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then what type of, as any cameras and things, we use technology, the minute you buy the phone, tomorrow it's outdated. With the cameras, what type of maintenance schedule, how does that work? Do we assume that after so many years, or how does the maintenance piece work?
So because we own the cameras,
Yes.
we have our own warranty, so we don't ask them to do anything.
Anything?
We will maintain them, we'll do the warranty, we will replace if there's a defect. We actually can do software updates through the cellular network. So we will take care of all of that. And the technology is as high a quality as it can be at this point, right?
Sure.
And we know, as a tech company, that technology is changing as fast as physically possible right now. But with the way that this works and the high definition videos or the cameras we're going to put on the side of the bus, there's not a lot of technology changes that will impact the how well we're going to be able to capture those images over the course of time. There obviously will be upgrades and stuff like that, and
Sure.
we'll address that at that time.
So what has been you're in several states, I saw
Yes,
that in
ma'am.
the beginning video, or beginning slide. what has been, you said you've been around 20 years?
Correct.
Okay, so what is the lifespan of one of your cameras typically? What are we looking at?
So it's interesting. We have programs that are 8, 9+ years in using the same technology and having good success. A lot of programs though, when they want to renew, what they'll do is they'll wait for that contract to end after 5 years. And then when they renew, part of the contract is to refresh the cameras, the technology to whatever's the newest version.
So it's a five, that's what I was wondering, it's about 5 years. Okay, very good. Thank you very much, gentlemen. That concludes.
Dr. Allen?
Thank you, Superintendent. Maybe help me understand how the intergovernmental works on the contract in regards to the processing of the citations and so forth. Collectively, is it, I mean, obviously it's being issued from Texas, right? The citation that would be, no.
No, okay, so the Houston-Galveston agreement, that's a cooperative buying group. So that was just our vehicle for purchasing, right? So we competitively bid to be a part of that cooperative so that other entities, there's multiple cities across and school districts across the state of Florida that are members of that and can use it for a variety of reasons. I think Scott made a comment that purchasing yesterday was like, wow, there's a lot of other things we can use this for to get deals on. When the event goes to Mesa, where our event processing center is, we're going to package up that event and then we're going to send it to Polk County School Sheriff's Office. They're going to actually process those events and they have to physically press approve. Yes, I agree that this fits the criteria to be a citation. At that point, it goes back to us and we actually are going to print and mail a citation in the likeness that Sheriff Grady has told us he wants it to look like. So we're going to create a citation that looks exactly how he wants it to look, and it's going to come from Polk County Sheriff.
Gotcha. So if you're in the city of Lakeland and you have a citation you've gained, so it's actually going to be from the Polk County Sheriff's Department?
So the reason it'll be Polk County Sheriff, and this is where we, our national presence helps us, is if you have to do a city ordinance for a program like this, then you have to do every single jurisdiction that fits. Because it's state regulated, the sheriff covers the entire county.
Gotcha.
So we're okay from that, a jurisdictional standpoint.
All right. And then how about the appeal process? So if someone is issued a citation, right? And I'm just speaking from experience. When I was issued a red light cam ticket in the city of Lakeland, I wanted to go through the appeal process on that. So do we, what's that look like?
It's going to be the same process.
Yeah.
You went through us probably. So, but
they cut it in half. They did cut it in half, just so you know.
I think what's important to know is when we talk about a program like a Stop Arm Camera program, is there's a lot of stakeholders that are involved in this. So we've got the school district and the school board, you guys are our main customer, if you may. But law enforcement is our customer, and the courts are our customer, and quite frankly, the violator is too. So if we treat everybody along that process as a customer, we get really much better results. So we have a really easy cloud-based, web-based payment portal, and you can appeal right through there. You can see all your evidence through there, and then you can also schedule court hearings if you'd like through there. So we try to make it really easy for them, because it is a cumbersome task, and we've heard from other law enforcement agencies across the country is that their payment rates just go through the floor. When people can't figure out how to appeal or how to do stuff, they just say, I'm just not going to pay it. So we try to make that process really easy for them.
Mm-hmm. So is there compensation that then the sheriff's office receives from the citation, like percentage-wise? Can you maybe give some details on that?
Your IGA conversations with them?
Yeah, sure can. Mm-hmm. So when the violation is paid, the top bit goes to the Department of Health, is that correct? The top $25? So they get $25 off the top. The other $200, Vera Mobility gets a $49 per incident package fee, and then the rest would come to the school district. As far as the sheriff's office, what we're doing with them is we're paying them time to spend reviewing the violations. So we've worked up a per hour cost, and the first year is going to be really crucial, trying to figure out how many deputies need to be assigned to do this, and is it even a full year job? Because there again, during the summertime, there will be minimal violations. During the start of a school year, there's going to be a lot. So by doing it on a per-hour basis, we don't have to say we're going to assign 2 deputies, we've got to pay for those 2 deputies all the time. They're just going to put in the labor that they need per time and then send us a bill. And then that would come out of that.
Okay. And then, I was just pondering the capital investment, right? How long, because obviously the contract's 5 years, right? So I don't know, collectively with you thinking about your other experience with other school districts, how many years does it take to then offset the capital investment that you're putting in? And I know there's a zero cost to us, but is that capital cost going to be covered, by year 3? Because I think then as that contract comes to a close, then what would the renewal process look like? I'm just thinking about that.
It's a great question. We typically try to strive in the stop arm arena for about a 36-month payback. Like it's a much longer time frame than a red light or a speed program. There's just a lot less involved in those for number of events per camera, right? So that's usually about a 36-month payoff in that arena. When you talk about that renewal, it's an interesting because the dynamics of the pricing structure definitely change. If you want to refresh the cameras, it stays pretty much the same. But if the cameras are still working, the technology is still there, that dramatically changes the cost aspect to the school district that you guys would have to incur for us to continue to run a program.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Nolte?
Thank you. Following along with the great questions Dr. Allen asked, since you've been around here in Lakeland and the red light cameras and everything, I think you did give me once a couple years back. Of course, I think it was a wife, but anyway. If you don't get the money that you plan on getting from the violators, where's it going to come from?
So that's where we built in this cost neutrality clause for the school district. And basically what it says is if there's not enough money to cover the bill to us at the end of the contract, we'll just waive the remainder of the fee and we'll own it.
Wow.
Now, we can do that for a couple reasons. One, we are the largest automated enforcement company in the country and we're global. And two, is because we do studies and we do this all around the country and we know the majority of these programs pay themselves off. And some of them don't. And that's the sad truth about these automated enforcement programs is that there's so many violators that they do pay for themselves. Now, if they don't, then that kind of means we won, right? From a safety standpoint. And that's one of the things that allows us to offer those types of clauses is because we're not single revenue streamed. We don't only do stop arm cameras. It's not the only revenue we have to keep our company alive. We have multiple other programs that we enforce across the globe. So it allows us to really put a safety focus package kind of together for stop arm.
Okay, thank you. Who was the technical person that set up this whole thing 20-some years ago? Just curious.
I want to say he is retired. But retired from us. He's gone to work for another automated enforcement. But Jeff Nielsen is a guy they call the grandfather of Stop Arm for Vera Mobility.
Well, thank you.
We used to be called American Traffic Systems, and that is where most of our original programs in the state were with.
That's great because, student safety and employee safety, teacher safety, Polk County worker safety, it's very good. And thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Ms. Fields.
I want to thank Dr. Allen for all the questions that you asked, because those were some of mine. And I think what concerns me is that none of the information that relates to the citation and the distribution of the funds and all of that is in your presentation. And I think that it would be very good for us to have it as well as the public.
Yeah, we can absolutely share all that.
Yeah, and so I don't think that that's anything that we should have had to ask. I think that should have been a part of the presentation. And then I think at the end of the day, we all want what's best for our students and our families. I don't think there's any question about that. I know that we have some very interesting drivers in our county, but I think it's just throughout the United States. And I think that this is something very valuable, and I really trust Mr. Davis and his team as they bring us things to consider. I just think that in the future, it would be nice to have the finance piece very clear.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
I would like to add two key points if possible. We do a stop arm count every year. So last April, we did one. We had 1,039 stop arm violations counted in that day, one day. We are going to have another count, I think that's May 8th. And so it is a significant problem. Also in the state of Florida, we have to have a camera on the right side. We had an incident last week where a student was exiting the bus, or students were exiting the bus, and a vehicle drove past the bus on the right side and hit a student. And by the grace of God, the student was not injured other than bruises and bumps and abrasives. So this is truly another safety feature on the school buses, which is, I've said 1,000 times, the most safe ground transportation vehicle there is, and this is just another layer of that.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Thank you to the team. Mr. Chair, next item is Mr. Pitts, Chief of Staff. He's here to discuss the NUG, or non-union salary group increases.
Good afternoon, Superintendent and board members. Here to talk about the non-union salary increases. Ms. Jenkins at the last work session kind of gave a preview of the information, and the attachments that were on your board docs item were the actual salary schedules for our non-union staff, which is basically our district staff and our school administrators. There's two separate documents that you received. And just in summary, the non-union salary schedules will increase by 0.5%. Salary grades 15, 16, and 17 will have 1% restored between levels. Those salary grades last year received a much larger percentage of a raise, and we were not able to put that 1% between levels, and we were able to restore that this year. Those in their positions by January 1st, 2023 will move 2 levels. So that's an effective increase of 2.5% for our employees. Those on salary grades 15, 16, and 17 in their positions by January 2023 will move to the nearest level that gives them at least a 2.5% increase. Salary increases will be retroactive to July 1st, 2023. Retro payments and new salaries will be processed in the May 31st, 2024 paycheck. Any questions?
I see none, Mr. Pitts.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the remaining items are informational items only, and that would conclude the superintendent's portion of the workshop.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent Hyde. All right, so if we can now transition to our agenda review for tonight, would be awesome. So give you a moment to get your notes, open up your agenda for tonight. And I'm going to do the same. All right. So just as typical, A through C is pretty straightforward. Look forward to our special recognitions tonight as well. I'm excited about seeing some of those in our agenda. And then moving from A through C, I'm going to look at D, section D through G. Any comments or questions? D through G. right. And then we'll move down to sections H and I. All right, continuing down, sections J through M. Sections N through O. N and O. All right, and now we're down to the action agenda items for tonight. Any questions? I do see Ms. White, you are recognized.
Thank you. I will need to abstain from P1, and the appropriate paperwork will be filed before this evening.
All right. Thank you, Ms. White. All right. And then from there, we just move through the superintendent's report. I would assume you have a report for us tonight.
I do.
All right, very good. And then Mr. Bridges, I see you have something for us as well.
Yes, sir.
All right. And I will just bring forward a couple items that we've seen via email from Ms. Matthews as a refresher. And then we'll wrap with our public comments.
About 3 o'clock.
Any other questions on the agenda, board members? All right, Ms. Fields, you're recognized.
I just want to make sure that when we get to the action agenda for the Sales Tax Oversight Committee appointee, that is my appointee.
Yes, ma'am. Would you like to read that letter into the record?
Yes.
Perfect. Sounds great. Thank you. All right, board members. Any committee or liaison updates that you would like to bring forward before we adjourn? All right, Mr. Sharpless, you're recognized.
Just wanted to, update. Last week I went to FSBA's Advanced School Finance Forum. I'll tell you, it was very educational. I learned a lot. Highly suggest going to any other board member that would like to learn more about school finance, diving into EFP and all that great things. It was very. I learned a lot. So I just wanted to give a positive report from that experience.
Mm-hmm. Appreciate your time on that. Thank you, Mr. Sharpless. All right, board members. At this point, if there's nothing else to come before the board, this meeting is adjourned.